And welcome back. As we continue to talk about pixel art, we are now today going to take our first steps into making proper pixel art. So let's go ahead and get started by creating a new file here in Photoshop. And let's go ahead and make this 8 by 8 pixels. So we're going to start really small to really hone in on our skills here working with pixel art. So we're going to make an 8 by 8 image. Again, no artboard. We'll set the background just to white to start. And let's go ahead and create our image. Now, because this is 8 by 8 pixels, you'll notice that it is very small. So we are going to go ahead and use Control 0 to zoom that in. Now, if we wanted, we can of course press Control minus to take that back a little bit, just so we can get a little breather room here in our margins. Now, one thing I do want to point out is, of course, that we have our brush size here for our pencil is set right now to 1 pixel. If I hit the right bracket key, of course, I can increase that quite large so that way it would encapsulate much more of that. So for example, right now, if you look up here, I have a brush size of 15 pixels. And if I were to go ahead and reset this to black and I click over it, I have now painted the entire square to be black with just one single click. Now let's go ahead and just switch this to white. And let's go ahead and bring this back down to size 1. Now, of course, if I don't want to use angle brackets, I can, of course, come up here and click the little arrow next to the brush size. And you can see there's also a cursor here in which I can scroll to manipulate that brush size. It goes all the way up to 5,000 pixels and all the way down to 1. Now, of course, we're going to leave that 1 because we're working with an 8 by 8 image. And so we're going to want that image to be pretty small. Now, if I go ahead and start clicking on these pixels, you can see how quickly and easily that is to fill in. Just as a reminder, we did talk about this previously, but if I were to use the brush tool instead, and let's go ahead and make that down to 1 pixel, and if I were to use the brush tool on this instead of the pencil tool, you can see right now at 1 pixel, it's doing okay, but occasionally we do get this weird gray effect that we have, where it kind of gradients, and that's not what we want. So we're going to make sure that we do this with the pencil tool, because the pencil tool again is going to be much more precise in hitting each of those individual pixels. Now, you can see that it is, of course, very easily, if I'm not careful, I could make a mistake. So for example, if I were trying to fill this pixel in and I accidentally had my cursor here where it's just above that line, I could accidentally fill a pixel in. But of course, we can just use Control Z just to undo our mistake. So even though at this point it can still seem very tedious, we only have a 8 by 8 pixel image, which is a total of 64 pixels. Now I really quickly created a black and white checkerboard here just to demonstrate a couple things. So we of course can create very good quality images even at 8 by 8 pixels. Now they may not be as beautiful as they could be if we were at, let's say, like 128 by 128, because more pixels means you have more data. More data means you have the opportunity for more colors. So here, of course, is a very simple black and white image, but let's go ahead and take this to the next level and try to actually create something. So I'm going to go ahead and create another new image, leave it at 8 by 8, use Control 0 to zoom in, and Control minus to take it back 1. Now I'm going to go ahead and let's say to fill this in with black, we could, or we can leave it here as white as it is right now. Let's go ahead and try to do something relatively simple. Like let's say we want to draw a smiley face. So I know with a smiley face, I'm probably going to have some kind of circular shape to represent the face. And I looked here and said, oh, maybe I want to actually take that off 1. So the nice thing is, of course, I can just switch that back to white and I could paint those through. And then go back to black. And with that, it's a very quick, easy fix. Now the problem is with this shape is that I might notice, hey, you know what? I maybe want that to be filled in a little bit more. So maybe you want something a little more rounded, a little more filled in. Options are up to you. If I use my eraser tool and I start on that end, you can see we can simulate edges that might seem a little bit more circular. Now let's go ahead and go back to our brush tool and add in the eyes. And we'll add a small smile in here. All right, and we've created a very simple emoji. in effect here. So we have a smile. You can see the circle that we effectively created, and the eyes, and a smile. So it is very simple to create black and white images. Obviously, we can do this with color as well. But we're starting super small at 8 by 8 because we want to really hone our techniques. Now, as we dive further into this, we will expand out to larger image sizes so that we can really start to flex some of our creative muscle, and also so we can bring further techniques in that can really enhance our images. But just to start off here, we're starting with something very simple.